This is Mental Forge, where weakness burns and warriors are built. The night I learned what non-negotiable really means, I was under the slow breath of a street lamp and the hum of a sleeping city, palms wrapped around a paper cup, losing its heat, listening for a sign that would not come. I had a bag of plans and reasons and a spine full of maybe. A stray cat crossed my boots like a whisper. I looked up at the blank windows and tasted metal in my mouth, that iron flavor of almost. I remember a door opening somewhere far down the block, a strip of warm light spilling across wet pavement, and I swear the light made a sound, a small, decisive click, like a lock turning. In that click, I understood that the world does not answer to need, it answers to stance. You can want all you want, but until you move with the calm inevitability of someone for whom the outcome is already decided, life keeps you on hold. Act as if your success is non-negotiable. That is not ego. It is posture. It is the way a mountain stands even as the weather throws seasons at its face. Tonight, I am asking you to step into that mountain posture. Not the shout of a braggart, but the stillness of a craftsman who knows where the blade will meet the steel. If this voice feels like a hand on your shoulder in the right moment, take a breath with me, and, when you are ready, subscribe so you can keep building with us here at The Forge. What happens when you act as if your success is non-negotiable? You stop auditioning for your own life. Your nervous system loosens its grip on hesitation. You stop negotiating with fear as though it were a partner instead of a noise. You begin to treat discipline as a form of love, not a punishment. The days that once felt like sand slipping through your fingers become bricks laid with attention and grace. You learn to move from vague wanting to directed will. Your habits begin to do the heavy lifting that your motivation could never sustain on its own. You shift from chasing to creating. Over time, the results compound like a tide working the shoreline, unglamorous and relentless, reshaping the coast. The bridge from where you stand to a life built on non-negotiable success is not made of slogans. It is made of micro-choices and the identity they forge. Think of the way a craftsman shows up in The Slight Edge, where tiny, undramatic decisions bend the arc of destiny over long spans of time. Think of Atomic Habits, which whispers that identity is the real game. Do the thing, become the person, and then do the thing because you are already that person. Think of the compound effect, where time is not your enemy but your accomplice, when you apply simple disciplines with unromantic consistency. When Deepak Chopra speaks of effortless action aligned with natural law, I hear a call to stop fighting the current and instead learn its rhythm so that your strokes matter. When Dennis Waitley explores the inner patterns of winners, when Jack Canfield points to ownership and clarity, when Claude M. Bristol and Joseph Murphy dig into the soil of belief and the subconscious, when Genevieve Barrand reminds you that image precedes form, when Earl Nightingale says, "You become what you think about with burning regularity," they are harmonizing the same note. The world outside rearranges when you commit inside. This commitment is not a clenched jaw. It is the quiet insistence of a mind trained to return. Neuroscience has caught up to the sages on this. Repetition reshapes neural pathways. Attention is a muscle you can grow. Habit loops are not mysteries. Cue, routine, reward, like a little circuit you can reroute. When you set an implementation intention, when X happens, I will do Y. You are building a bridge for your brain to walk across without argument. Cognitive reframing is not a trick. It is an act of moral authority over your interpretation, which is the gatekeeper of your state and action. The brain changes through use. Neuroplasticity is not reserved for children. It favors the patient and the persistent. The more often you take the action that matches your future self, the more you normalize that identity until it feels like home. History remembers the men and women who made their outcomes non-negotiable, not because fate bowed, but because they moved like tide and granite at once. Consider Thomas Edison, working in a lab that smelled of varnish and hot metal, testing materials until the hours blurred. The notable thing is not a single invention, but his tolerance for the long corridor of almost. He met each failure with the equanimity of a farmer turning the soil. Non-negotiable is not the promise that this attempt works. It is the certainty that you will remain until the right attempt appears because you are training the conditions for it. Think of Henry Ford staring at the bottlenecks of early manufacturing and deciding to reorganize the world into a moving line. That was not a trick of machinery, but a shift in his stance toward the problem. He assumed the solution existed and demanded that reality reveal the hinges. Andrew Carnegie understood the force of a focused mind and a focused team. He cultivated a discipline of delegation and vision. And with Charles M. Schwab, he wielded a simple nightly practice of priorities that cut through the fog. In a single sentence of instruction to his managers, he turned abstract goals into the next hard thing. He believed that concentrated effort, day by day, would beat scattered busyness, and he proved it. Abraham Lincoln taught the world about persistence, born of values. He faced losses, doubt, and the weight of a divided nation, yet he kept daily counsel with his conscience and his purpose. The power was not in a rousing speech, but in the stubborn humility to show up again, to learn again, to tighten the weave of his principles until they held under strain. John D. Rockefeller moved through market panics with the stillness of a man who knew his numbers, his costs, and his temperament. While others sprinted in fear, he walked. The difference between a sprint and a walk in a storm is the difference between panic and poise. Rockefeller's non-negotiable was not profits at any cost. It was the practice of calm, rational control when others abandoned it. Winston Churchill turned his entire being into a wall against despair. Nights of doubt and mornings of iron law followed, as he chose words like anchor points for a nation in rough water. Leonardo da Vinci filled page after page with sketches and notes, a mind in constant apprenticeship to curiosity. He acted as if mastery is a relationship, not an event, and he proved that breadth can serve depth when the underlying stance is rigorous attention. Julius Caesar, faced with a river that symbolized no return, chose action that burned the option of retreat and forced full engagement. He behaved as if the decision was made long before his men felt the mud of the far bank. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself in the quiet, before dawn and after dusk, a practice of examining thought and returning to principle, a reminder that the self not governed slips into the custody of fear. Benjamin Franklin kept a ledger of virtues and transgressions, not because he loved rules, but because he loved accountability and the freedom it buys. If you listen closely, you can hear a chorus among these stories. The inner posture comes first. The world yields to a consistent pattern of thought and deed. When Napoleon Hill wrote about a definite purpose and a mind harmonized with it, when Wallace D. Wattles talked about acting in a certain way, when James Allen described the garden of the mind, when Maxwell Maltz explained the way self-image regulates behavior, when Tony Robbins pressed leverage and state and decisive action into a single engine, when Robert Kiyosaki contrasted assets and liabilities and called for financial literacy as daily practice, when Ray Dalio spoke of principles refined by reality and feedback, when Stephen Pressfield named resistance and told you to sit down and work anyway, when Grant Cardone demanded that you raise your standard of output by a factor that scares you, they were all passing the same torch. Belief isn't a mood, it is a discipline. So, let's bring this from epiphany to practice. Begin with mornings as a forge. Rise and meet your first breath with intention. Feel the cool air enter and the warm air leave, and decide the quality of your attention for the next stretch of hours. Before you reach for a device, reach for your direction. Speak your identity under your breath, not as magic words, but as marching orders. I am the kind of person who honors the first hour, who does the hard thing first, who keeps promises to myself. Visualize, in granular detail, the scene of your next key action. Picture your hands on the keyboard writing the proposal, your feet moving through the gym, your voice steady in the meeting, your eyes on the ledger. This is mental rehearsal, the same kind athletes use, and the brain primes the circuits it practices. Now set an implementation intention. When I finish my coffee, I open the document. When I enter the gym, I head straight to the first station. When the meeting begins, I ask the first clarifying question. Create a chain your future self can follow without debate. Throughout the day, Run a simple attentional drill. Every time you feel the itch to drift, name it, breathe, and return. Attentional control improves like strength training. Every return is a rep. Pair this with a bias toward the present. Anxiety is often a mind rehearsing unwanted futures. Regret is a mind replaying fixed pasts. Return to now by describing the immediate sensory field to yourself. The weight of your body in the chair, the hum of the room, the color in the sky. Then, move. Motion reshapes emotion. A brisk walk can clear static from your head in minutes, and that reset pays interest across the next decisions. In the evening, hold the mirror with kindness and firmness. Journal on 3 anchors. First, what did I do today that aligned with the person I am becoming? Describe the smallest win with the dignity it deserves. Second, where did I negotiate with fear or comfort? Do not excuse it. Name it and write the better response you will install. Third, what will I do tomorrow that, if done, makes the day a win regardless of what goes sideways? This ritual is simple, and it trains your brain to catalog evidence of competence, to design implementation intentions, and to normalize accountability without self-attack. If you want to deepen it, add a gratitude entry, not as sentimentality, but as training and attention to abundance. Your subconscious listens to your focus. Feed it what you want more of. We cannot speak of non-negotiable success without speaking of money as a practice, not a guess. Wealth, in the sober sense, is a system that keeps paying you for being you, again and again, without asking you to trade every hour of your life. Start by paying yourself first through automatic saving and investing. Automation is not laziness. It is acknowledgement of how willpower behaves under stress. Set your accounts to move a portion of your income into assets before you see it as available. Treat expense audits as a monthly ritual of clarity. Are your dollars doing what your values demand, or are they bleeding into noise? Value-based spending does not starve joy. It starves mindless drift. Build skill stacks that intersect with leverage. A person who understands a craft, communication, and basic numbers becomes hard to replace. Seek asymmetric upside bets, where the downside is bounded, but the upside can change the shape of your life. Think of starting a modest service business, building a digital product, investing in a wide basket of low-fee index funds that harness the economy's growth over time, while you focus on adding real value. Build assets that throw cash flow, and then reinvest. This is not financial advice tailored to your particular situation. It is education in the shape of discipline. History again holds a lamp. Nikola Tesla saw machines in working detail with his eyes closed before he ever built them. He rehearsed until the design either failed in his mind or demanded being born. That level of visualization is not mystical, it is the high art of preparation. Mahatma Gandhi stood against empire with a spine of non-violence that was not softness but sharpened steel. He acted as if his dignity and his aim were not for sale, and a nation relented. Alexander the Great moved faster than his enemies could think. Combining speed, logistics, and psychological pressure, he turned terrain into an ally through preparation and decisiveness. Isaac Newton sat so deeply with problems that time evaporated. He carved whole new branches of understanding by remaining with a question long after others had wandered. Genghis Khan taught the brutal lesson of adaptability and information. He built networks of communication and made decisions with the cold clarity of a chess player who sees many moves ahead. Leonidas of Sparta stood with a small band in a narrow pass, and though he fell, his stance bought time for a free people and taught the world that a line held by conviction shifts the course of events. Socrates walked the streets and asked questions that dissolved false certainty. He refused to outsource his soul to popular opinion. Cornelius Vanderbilt, with ships and then rails, turned discipline into empire by watching costs like a hawk and pushing for efficiencies that others shrugged at. J.P. Morgan stared down panic by coordinating action when courage had left the room, teaching that sometimes the difference between disaster and stability is a person who refuses to blink. Bring these lessons home. Decide your aim in words so clean they almost cut. The mind respects precision. Vague goals keep you in the soft fog where fear grows. Write your aim in the present tense, as if it were a fact, and then ask, what is the simplest proof I can produce this week that I am moving? Proof could be a finished sales call, a page written, a workout completed, a budget reviewed, a conversation begun, a prototype shipped. Then calibrate your day around that proof like a compass. This is the success principle of ownership crossed with the war on resistance. Your enemy is not complexity. It is the seduction of delay, packaged as noble planning. Planning is virtuous within the guardrails of execution. Make your plans like an engineer, then execute like a craftsman whose hand knows the feel of steel. Your subconscious is both a memory palace and an obedient servant. Feed it images and language that align with your purpose. A simple affirmation can become a keystone when tied to behavior. I keep promises to myself. I take the next right step. I create more value than I consume. I remain calm under pressure. Let these be breath-length, present tense, identity-based statements. Say them before action, not as a spell but as a reminder of who is driving. Then, prove them. Nothing tunes belief like action. This is psycho-cybernetics at work. Your self-image updates in response to consistent evidence. Believe, behave, become, in that order, and then back again. On decision-making, learn to separate one-way doors from two-way doors. Reserve extended analysis for choices that are hard to reverse. For reversible choices, bias toward action, gather feedback, and adjust. This principle will save you from paralysis. Practice an OODA-style loop. Observe without flinching. Orient with your principles and data. Decide with a clock running. Act with full commitment. Then review. The review makes you dangerous. Without it, you are just busy. With it, you become a scientist of your own life, running experiments, collecting data, iterating. Ray Dalio's stance serves you here. Reality is the final judge, and pain plus reflection yields progress. Resistance will not quit. It will wear disguises. It will appear as fatigue, sudden interest in trivial tasks, a compelling urge to research just a little more, a craving for social media, a need to rearrange your desk. Notice it with a smile. Then do the work anyway. Stephen Pressfield is right. Your job is to sit down and begin. The moment you begin, the mind opens a door you thought was locked. Pair this with the 10x idea, not as a number, but as a mood. Raise the intensity and volume of your output until your world takes your aim seriously. The world respects a drumbeat, not a stray cymbal crash every few weeks. For wealth, build rhythms. Once a week, review your money with calm. What came in? What went out? What was invested? What assets grew? What liabilities shrank? This is not punishment. It is respect for reality. Keep a simple ledger of net worth, month by month, to see the trend. Trends speak when snapshots lie. Once a quarter, assess your skill stack. What becomes more valuable when combined with what you already do? Add one deliberate learning project at a time and integrate it into the work you already perform. Seek mentors and communities where the default conversation lifts your horizon. You become what you are inside of. That is why the right room can be a ladder. Speaking of rooms, this place, this community, is a forge, not a theater. Talk to us. Share your progress in the comments. Tell us what experiment you ran this week, what resistance looked like and how you met it, what you learned from a small win or a sharp loss. We read, we respond, we shape the next sessions based on your needs. If you are halfway through and finding your edges sharpening, take a second to subscribe so the rhythm stays unbroken and you do not lose the thread we are weaving together. The daily ritual I have offered is not a cage, it is a frame that holds your art steady. Add to it an energy practice you can do in minutes. Stand tall, feet rooted. Inhale into your belly and up into your ribs. Exhale twice as long. Do this a handful of times before high-stakes moments. Physiological calm is not bravado, it is chemistry. Your nervous system speaks clarity only when you free it from panic. Layer on a visualization of obstacles. Picture interruptions arriving, temptations tapping your shoulder, emergencies erupting. Then picture your response: poised, brief, decisive. This is mental inoculation. You teach your brain a map through rough ground before you set foot on it. At least once each week, pick a domain of life and run an after-action review. What was my intended outcome? What actually happened? What went well? Where did I deviate? What will I change? Keep it short and honest. Pair it with a pre-mortem for the coming week. Imagine your plan failed. Why? What steps can you take now to reduce that risk? This blend of military clarity and compassionate self-study turns weeks into units of mastery rather than pages of a calendar. Add an accountability mechanism, a check-in with a friend on the same path, a public commitment in the community, a small, meaningful stake if you miss. Make missing costly enough to wake your attention, not catastrophic enough to wreck your progress. For your mind, cultivate 3 disciplines. First, solitude without input. Sit in quiet and let the sediment settle. Ideas will rise when the noise drops. Second, reading that stretches you. The works we have named are not museum pieces, they are manuals. Read until a principle stops you. Then close the book and put that principle on the anvil of your day. Third, conversation with people who call out your excuses and call up your courage. Keep those friends close. They are rare. There is a spiritual layer to this work that does not require dogma. It is the decision to live from faith rather than fear. Faith here means the steady trust that you can meet life with creativity and resilience, that there is order to be found and made, that your effort is not futile, even when outcomes hide. Fear shrinks possibility. Faith opens it. Catherine Ponder speaks of prosperity as a law woven into the fabric of life when thought and action align with expansion. Florence Scovel Shinn speaks of words as commands. Speak in the direction you wish to travel. Earl Nightingale reminds that our dominant obsessions shape our experience. Choose obsessions worth living inside of. On the practical side of business, work on the business, as well as in the business. Set aside time each week for strategy, systems, marketing, and reflection. Create simple dashboards of the metrics that matter: sales, retention, satisfaction, costs, cash runway. These numbers are not cold. They are the pulse of your effort. Learn to sell as the art of serving with clarity. Selling is not tricking. It is learning someone's need and telling them the truth about whether you can meet it and why it matters. Learn to build offers that stack value ethically. Learn to raise your price when your value increases. Learn to say no to work that drags you from your aim, even when it flatters your ego or your need for quick wins. That no will feel like a cliff edge. On the other side is the work that belongs to you. Keep your body like a loyal horse. Sleep with discipline. Eat like someone who wants to think clearly at midday and still feel steady in the evening. Move every day. Strength trains character. Endurance trains patience. Mobility trains humility. This is not separate from success. A mind that rides a tired body pays a tax on every choice. When fear shows up, as it will, test it. Fear is often a vague fog. Force it into sentences. What exactly are you afraid of? What are the odds? What is the worst case, the best case, the most likely case? What can you do to reduce the risk of the worst case? What can you do to capture more of the best case? Then act. Courage is attention plus movement in the presence of trembling. Your brain learns it can survive the tremble. The next time it trembles less, this is how you kill fear through repetition and vision, not by waiting for a day when fear disappears. Identity settles only when it is anchored to behavior. So, anchor it. If you are becoming a writer, write words every day and ship on a schedule. If you are becoming a leader, lead every day by making decisions and owning outcomes. If you are becoming an investor, invest regularly and review calmly. Your identity grows roots when the soil sees water without fail. Let me tell you a quiet story about Rockefeller again, not of oil but of composure. In a panic, as tickers spat out falling prices like hail, he left his office and took a walk. He counted his steps. He thought about what businesses would be stronger on the other side. He did not fight his racing mind. He gave it a task. This is attentional control in the field. Your own version might be a walk around the block before you respond to a heated email, a breath before you accept a suspect deal, a pause before you reply to a criticism. Control buys you the space to choose virtue over impulse. Think of Franklin, scratching with a quill under candlelight, marking his ledger of virtues. He knew he would fail daily. That was not the point. The point was facing the mirror with unblinking eyes and then living tomorrow a hair closer to the mark. Think of Marcus in a tent with the empire at risk, writing to ground himself in reason and duty. Think of Churchill pacing a dim room, turning words like bullets into shields, deciding he would be a hinge in history. Think of Leonardo leaning over his notebooks, a tangle of sketches and ideas, not waiting for permission to explore the impossible. Think of Caesar, not as a conqueror, but as a man who decided to cut off escape and thereby discovered who he was under pressure. Think of Tesla watching the spinning of a motor he had not yet built. Think of Gandhi holding his jaw set in softness that was stronger than steel. Think of Vanderbilt standing on a dock, calculating in his head what others would never write down. Think of Morgan staring at a room full of frightened men and becoming the floor that did not collapse. These are not myths. These are illustrations of a stance. I go forward. I stand here. I choose this. The terms are not up for debate. Let's put more tools in your belt. When you face a task you avoid, use the 2-minute ignition. Tell yourself, you will perform the task for 2 minutes only. Set a timer. Begin. 2 minutes turns into 10, into more, because starting punctures the membrane of procrastination. When you dread a conversation, script your first sentence and your final ask. Walk in with those anchors. When you set a new habit, tie it to an old one. After I brush my teeth, I do 10 slow breaths. After I brew coffee, I open the app and track yesterday's spending. After I put my shoes on, I step outside and begin the run. When designing your environment, make the right action easy and the wrong action hard. Put your phone in another room when you do deep work. Place your workout clothes by the bed. Keep your fridge stocked with what you intend to eat, not what you intend to resist. Now, on building assets, remember that wealth is built by combining time, money, and skill under the rule of patience. Avoid debt that buys you nothing but a brief sensation and a long chain. When you use credit, make it a tool with a clear outcome and exit. Invest in businesses where you understand how value is created and where you can either contribute or stay safely diversified. Be wary of complexity that flatters your intellect while eroding your margin of safety. Study mental models, opportunity cost, second-order effects, inversion, margin of safety, anti-fragility. They are not academic playthings. They are guardrails when your blood runs hot. Leadership begins at home. Keep your word to yourself. If you promise yourself a morning ritual, do it. If you promise yourself a weekly review, do it. Fill your calendar with blocks for deep work and protect them like a father protects his child. Say no to distractions with the warmth and finality of a closed door. Your time is a vault, and you are the guard. When you fail, as you will, meet it with graceful honesty. What can I learn? What must I change? Then change it. If you are consistent, your self-respect will grow like a tree. In the realm of spirit and purpose, set a theme for your life that you can carry into every room. Something like, I create value and freedom, or I build strength and serve, or I bring clarity and courage. This is your banner. When decisions confuse you, raise the banner and ask which choice belongs to it. You will find much becomes clear when your banner is visible. We have not yet spoken of joy. Joy is not the finish line. It can be the fuel. The work that matters is heavy. It can also be luminous when you notice its texture, the smell of coffee before you write, the feeling of breath in your chest as you walk at sunrise toward your gym, the hum of focus when you lose track of time inside of meaningful problems. Joy reminds you why you chose this road. Without it, you will mistake suffering for virtue and grimness for grit. With it, you will become a person others want to build with. Carry yourself with integrity. Wealth without honor shrinks the soul. Power without moral strength corrodes the owner. Align your money with your values. Pay people on time. Tell the truth, especially when it costs you. Build a reputation that your grandchildren will not need to outrun. There will be days when compromise looks easier. Remember that ease today often purchases pain tomorrow. The person you become is the only non-negotiable worth protecting above everything else. If wealth requires you to betray that, the price is too high. Let's set a challenge for the coming week. Choose one action that scares you, but aligns with your purpose. Schedule it within the next 2 days. Prepare the first step tonight. Tell one person you trust that you will do it. Then report back to them after. Track the feeling in your body before and after. Notice how fear changes shape once you enter the ring. Then choose a simple habit to master this month. Tie it to a trigger, write your implementation intention, and keep a visual chain of completion. Put an X on a calendar square each day you complete it. Do not break the chain. This trains you to respect your own momentum. In your journal, answer 3 questions at the end of each week. What did I do that deserves repeating? What did I do that needs replacement? What did I learn about myself that I can use? The long game is where most people lose themselves. They either sprint and gas out or wander and waste their years. Your edge will be willingness to do boring excellence for long stretches while making small adjustments. That is what the master key system of your life looks like. Principles set the frame. Habits do the work. Reflection guides correction. Community fuels endurance. Purpose makes all the pieces sing. If you have been walking with me through this, you already feel it. The click of a lock. The door inside you, opening to a room where the old negotiations simply do not happen anymore. You do not bargain with your workout, or your writing, or your study, or your outreach, or your savings. You do them. If you miss, you return. You do not judge the scale from one day to the next. You review the trend and adjust. You do not wait for confidence. You build it by evidence. You do not deny fear. You train it to follow you rather than lead. One more thing, whispered like a friend across a small table. When you inevitably hit the wall, do not define yourself by the impact. Define yourself by the way you stand back up. Every figure we studied fell, some repeatedly, some in public, some in private. They made a habit of returning. That habit is within your reach. Cultivate it. Before we close, remember to subscribe if this helped you hold a better stance today. And tell someone you care about that you are done negotiating with your own potential. I want you to feel the warmth of this truth like sunlight on your face. The world is not your enemy. It is your partner when you stop arguing with your purpose. Act as if your success is non-negotiable. Walk into rooms as a person whose word to self is law. Build habits that move under gravity, even when your mood does not show up. Study the masters, but craft your own signature. Invest in assets and abilities that get stronger with use and time. Care for your body as the instrument of your will. Speak with integrity. Move with courage. Rest with intention. Love with a steady hand. Write your aim where you can see it. Take the next right step. Review. Adjust. Repeat. Come back here and tell us what you forged. We will be here with heat and hammers, and a circle of people who take themselves seriously enough to laugh, to try, to fail, to learn, to grow. Tonight, under whatever sky you live, make the decision. The cat will cross your path. The light will spill across the pavement. You will hear a click. That will be you, closing the door on the old life of maybe. When you rise tomorrow, you will move like a mountain, calm and inevitable. Nothing flashy, steady. Step by step, breath by breath, a quiet parade of actions that say more loudly than any boast, "This is who I am." There will be no negotiations, only the work, only the becoming, only the wealthy soul shaping a wealthy life, and then sharing the abundance, because that is what a strong person does when their cup overflows. You are that person, whether you feel it fully yet or not, and with each small honor of your word, you will feel it more. Now go make the day remember you as someone who acted. Champions, Your mind has been forged a little stronger today, but the real test isn't what you learned, it's what you do with it. Take action, dominate your day, and remember, we're not just building better thoughts, we're forging unstoppable lives. The forge doesn't stop, and neither do you. If this episode hit you where it counts, subscribe to Mental Forge Academy and join the Brotherhood of Champions who refuse to settle for ordinary. Go transform, strike while the mind is hot.